Their expressions grew grave as I recounted my experiences. "You've disturbed something that should have remained undisturbed," one elder warned, his voice low and filled with sorrow. "The forest spirits are restless, and they will not forget the trespass." However, my assignment to the Alaskan mountains would shatter that tranquility and lead me down a path of terror and regret. The Alaskan wilderness is a realm of breathtaking beauty, where towering peaks scrape the sky, and vast expanses of forest stretch endlessly. The air is crisp and invigorating, filled with the earthy scent of pine and the distant sound of rushing streams. But it is also a land steeped in mystery, burdened with legends that whisper of ancient spirits and dark forces. As I prepared for my new role, I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. I had heard stories from other rangers about the eerie allure of the Alaskan wilds, tales of strange disappearances and encounters with the unknown that sent shivers down my spine. Yet, I was determined to embrace this new adventure. Upon arriving at the ranger station, I was greeted by the rugged landscape and the stark beauty of the towering mountains. The locals, while welcoming, had an air of caution about them. The trails wound through dense thickets and across sparkling streams, inviting exploration. However, I also became aware of the unspoken rules that governed the forest. The elders in town spoke of the spirits of the woods, guardians who watched over the land and its inhabitants. They warned of the consequences of disturbing sacred places, such as ancient burial grounds and sites where rituals had once taken place. The trails wound through dense thickets and across sparkling streams, inviting exploration. However, I also became aware of the unspoken rules that governed the forest. The elders in town spoke of the spirits of the woods, guardians who watched over the land and its inhabitants. They warned of the consequences of disturbing sacred places, such as ancient burial grounds and sites where rituals had once taken place. I brushed these tales off as folklore, remnants of a culture steeped in superstition, but an undercurrent of doubt began to seep into my mind. One afternoon, while on a routine patrol, I stumbled upon a remote area that felt oddly different from the rest of the forest. The trees stood in unnatural formations, twisted and gnarled as if they had been shaped by unseen hands. In the center of this peculiar grove lay a circle of stones, covered in moss and engraved with unfamiliar symbols. My heart raced with curiosity as I approached, but a nagging feeling of unease settled in my stomach. It was as if the very air grew thick with tension, warning me to step back. Despite the warnings, I couldn't resist the allure of the clearing. I set up camp nearby, drawn to its enigmatic energy. That night, as darkness enveloped the forest, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable change that sent a shiver down my spine. The whispers began softly, a gentle rustling that seemed to call my name, beckoning me to listen. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was just the wind, but the feeling of being watched crept in, saturating the night with an unsettling presence. Sleep eluded me as I lay in my tent, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. Shadows danced just beyond the reach of my campfire, and I could hear the faint sounds of movement in the brush. My mind raced, piecing together the stories I had heard from the locals about the spirits that roamed these woods. I recalled their warnings about the importance of respect and the consequences of disturbing the sacred. The realization that I may have unknowingly trespassed into a realm beyond my understanding sent waves of dread crashing over me. The following days were marked by an increasing sense of paranoia. I began to notice odd occurrences. The wildlife had gone silent, and the familiar rustling of leaves was replaced by an oppressive stillness. My instincts, honed over years of working in the woods, screamed that something was terribly wrong. As I traversed the trails, I felt the weight of unseen eyes upon me, and with each step, the forest seemed to close in around me. With my unease mounting, I sought out the advice of the elders in the nearby town. Their expressions grew grave as I recounted my experiences. "You've disturbed something that should have remained undisturbed," one elder warned, his voice low and filled with sorrow. "The forest spirits are restless, and they will not forget the trespass." Their words echoed in my mind, fueling the growing sense of dread that threatened to consume me. I knew I had to confront the shadows lurking in the depths of the Alaskan wilderness, but the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. Would I find answers, or would I awaken forces that were better left undisturbed? As I prepared to delve deeper into the heart of the forest, I steeled myself for the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead, though I couldn't shake the feeling that I was already too late. As I settled into my role as a forest ranger in the Alaskan wilderness, I quickly realized that the land was not just a backdrop for my work. It was a living entity, steeped in history and lore. The forest was rich with stories, and the people who inhabited the nearby towns held a wealth of knowledge that was both fascinating and deeply unsettling. One of the first characters I encountered was Old Man Ketchum, a local elder known for his deep connection to the land and his extensive knowledge of its folklore. With his weathered skin and piercing blue eyes, he seemed to embody the very spirit of the wilderness. He often sat by the fire in the community center, sharing tales of the spirits of the woods that roamed the forest. His stories were woven with cautionary lessons about respecting the land and the consequences of disturbing sacred places. "Every tree, every rock has a story," he would say, his voice gravelly yet captivating. "You must listen closely, for the forest speaks to those who are willing to hear." I found myself drawn to his words, captivated by the way he painted vivid pictures of the land's history. Yet, a part of me remained skeptical, questioning whether the old tales held any truth, or were merely the fabrications of a bygone era. Sarah, a fellow ranger who had worked in the Alaskan wilderness for several years, became my closest ally. With her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and a perpetual smile on her face, she exuded an infectious enthusiasm for the land. Sarah was passionate about wildlife conservation and was dedicated to preserving the delicate balance of the ecosystem. She often accompanied me on patrols, sharing her extensive knowledge of the flora and fauna that thrived in the region. "Look over there," she would point excitedly. "That's a moose track. And see those berries? They're a favorite snack for bears." Her enthusiasm was contagious, and I found myself appreciating the beauty of the forest through her eyes. Yet, even Sarah couldn't escape the undercurrents of unease that permeated our surroundings. She had her own encounters with the unknown, experiences that haunted her at night. I once saw something moving in the shadows, just on the edge of the tree line, she confessed one evening as we sat around a campfire. "It was big, and it didn't look like any animal I've ever seen. I thought it was just my imagination, but the feeling of being watched lingered long after I left." Her honesty resonated with my own fears, and I realized that we were both grappling with the same sense of foreboding that had settled over the forest like a thick fog. As I delved deeper into the forest, I discovered more about the community that lived on its fringes. The townsfolk were a rugged bunch, shaped by the harsh realities of life in the wilderness. They shared a bond forged through generations of living in harmony with the land, but an underlying tension permeated their interactions. There were unspoken rules that governed their lives, and the tales of the forest spirits were a constant reminder of the power that lay beyond human comprehension. One evening, I joined a group of locals at the diner, a small establishment that served as a gathering place for the community. The walls were adorned with photographs of past rangers, hunters, and families who had lived in the area. As I listened to the conversations around me, I could sense the mixture of camaraderie and caution that characterized their discussions. "Did you hear about the hiker who went missing last month?" A man at the counter remarked, his voice low. "They say he wandered too far into the woods, past the old burial ground." Some folks think he disturbed something he shouldn't have. The murmurs of agreement that followed sent a chill down my spine. I had heard similar stories before, tales of hikers who vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but echoes of their presence. The weight of those stories pressed heavily on my mind as I contemplated the consequences of my own curiosity. As I spent more time in the forest, I began to develop a deeper understanding of its rhythms. The way the light filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor, felt like an invitation to uncover its secrets. But with each discovery came a nagging sense of dread. We knew we had to address the situation before it spiraled out of control. What if we hold a gathering with the community? Sarah suggested. We can share what we've learned and encourage them to honor the land. It was a solid plan, but as we began to organize the event, I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The forest felt increasingly hostile, as if it were aware of our intentions. In the center of the clearing, I found a circle of stones, much like the one I had encountered before. The symbols etched into the stones were unfamiliar, yet they seemed to resonate with an ancient power. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that I had unwittingly crossed into a sacred space. In that moment, the weight of my actions began to sink in. I was no longer just a ranger patrolling the woods. I was an intruder in a realm that demanded respect and reverence. The stories of the elders and the warnings from the townsfolk echoed in my mind, reminding me of the fragile balance I had disrupted. As I left the clearing, a sense of urgency propelled me forward. I needed to share my findings with Sarah and Old Man Ketchum, to seek their guidance and understanding. The stakes had become too high for me to ignore. The forest was alive with secrets, and I felt a growing responsibility to uncover the truth before it was too late. The shadows were closing in, and I was determined to face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. As my time in the Alaskan wilderness unfolded, the unease I had initially brushed off began to consume me. The forest, once a place of beauty and adventure, transformed into a labyrinth of uncertainty, where shadows danced just beyond the reach of my flashlight, and the whispers of the wind felt like warnings. The deeper I ventured into the woods, the more I sensed that something was lurking just out of sight, something ancient and powerful, waiting to be acknowledged. After my unsettling discovery in the clearing, I sought out Sarah to share what I had found. We met at the ranger station, her enthusiasm for the forest overshadowed by a growing concern. As I described the circle of stones and the symbols etched into them, her expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. Those markings, were they similar to any of the symbols in the local folklore? She asked, her brow furrowing. I'm not sure, I admitted, feeling a sense of dread creep over me. But they felt significant, almost like a warning. I can't shake the feeling that I crossed a line. That's exactly what I've been worried about, Sarah replied, her voice low. In the center of the clearing, I found a circle of stones, much like the one I had encountered before. The symbols etched into the stones were unfamiliar, yet they seemed to resonate with an ancient power. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that I had unwittingly crossed into a sacred space. In that moment, the weight of my actions began to sink in. I was no longer just a ranger patrolling the woods. I was an intruder in a realm that demanded respect and reverence. The tales of missing hikers and strange occurrences had begun to intertwine with our reality, and I felt an urgency to act before the situation escalated further. Determined to seek guidance, we decided to pay a visit to Old Man Ketchum. His cabin sat at the edge of the woods, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. As we approached, the air grew still, and an unsettling silence enveloped us. I knocked on the door, and after a few moments, the elder appeared, his face etched with concern. I felt you two coming, he said, his voice gravelly but calm. You've been poking around where you shouldn't, haven't you? I exchanged a glance with Sarah, who nodded, urging me to speak. We found a clearing with a circle of stones and strange markings. We need to understand their significance. Old Man Ketchum's expression darkened. You've disturbed something that was meant to be left alone. The balance of the forest is delicate, and now it may be angry. Angry, I echoed, a knot forming in my stomach. What does that mean? It means you must tread carefully, he replied, his eyes narrowing. The spirits of the land are not to be trifled with. Those who disrespect them may face dire consequences. The weight of his words settled heavily on us. I felt a chill run down my spine, and the tension in the air became palpable. We were standing on the precipice of something far greater than ourselves, and I could sense the looming conflict that awaited us. As we left the elder's cabin, Sarah and I discussed our next steps. We knew we had to address the situation before it spiraled out of control. What if we hold a gathering with the community? Sarah suggested. We can share what we've learned and encourage them to honor the land. It was a solid plan, but as we began to organize the event, I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The forest felt increasingly hostile, as if it were aware of our intentions. I often found myself glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see shadows flickering in the trees. The night of the gathering arrived, and the community filled the small hall, their faces illuminated by flickering lanterns. Old Man Ketchum opened the discussion, recounting the stories of the forest and the importance of respecting its sacred sites. The room fell silent as he spoke, the weight of his words resonating deeply with everyone present. I've heard whispers of recent disturbances in the woods, he warned. We must heed the warnings and come together to restore balance. As he spoke, I noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The openness of the gathering morphed into a palpable tension as murmurs of doubt and fear began to circulate. Some townsfolk expressed skepticism, dismissing the old tales as mere superstition. Others, however, nodded in agreement, sharing their own experiences of unease in the woods. People go missing every year, and it's always brushed aside. A woman named Clara spoke up, her voice rising. We can't ignore this any longer. Something is happening out there. The room erupted into a flurry of voices, some calling for action, while others tried to downplay the concerns. I felt the conflict growing, both within the community and within myself. The stories I had once dismissed were now taking on a life of their own, and I couldn't help but wonder if we had awakened something that should have remained dormant. As the meeting progressed, I felt a surge of determination. We need to investigate further, I announced, my voice cutting through the chaos. If there's a chance that something is truly wrong in the forest, we owe it to ourselves and the land to find out what's going on. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. Some faces were filled with fear, while others held a spark of hope. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, and I knew that we were in this together. After the meeting, as the townsfolk filtered out, I caught a glimpse of uncertainty in Sarah's eyes. Do you think we're making a mistake? She asked quietly. What if we're inviting something we can't control? I hesitated, grappling with the weight of my own fears. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We owe it to this place to uncover the truth, no matter how unsettling it may be. As we prepared for our next expedition into the forest, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. The conflict was escalating, and I feared that we were standing at the edge of a precipice. The whispers of the woods grew louder in my mind, and I knew that the answers awaited us deep within the shadows. But would we be ready to face whatever lay ahead? Only time would tell. As the days turned into weeks, the primary conflict surrounding the unease in the Alaskan wilderness became intertwined with various subplots that revealed the complexities of our lives as forest rangers and the community we served. Each character carried their own burdens, making the stakes of our investigation not just about the forest, but also about personal growth, relationships, and the unearthing of long-hidden truths One evening, after a particularly tense day of patrolling the forest, Sarah and I sat on the porch of the ranger station, sipping hot coffee. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced in the fading light. I noticed Sarah staring into the distance, her brow furrowed. "What's on your mind?" I asked, breaking the silence. She sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I've been thinking about my parents. They used to bring me here every summer when I was a kid. We'd hike these trails, camp under the stars. But after my father passed away, we stopped coming. I think I've been trying to reconnect with that part of my life, but now..." Her voice trailed off, and I could sense the weight of her emotions. "Now it feels tainted," I finished for her. "You feel like the forest has changed, like it's become something darker." "Exactly," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I loved this place, but now I'm not sure if I can separate those happy memories from what's happening now. It's like the forest has turned into a different entity altogether." Her vulnerability resonated with my own insecurities. I had also been grappling with my connection to the land I had once cherished. The stories of the missing hikers and the ancient spirits now clouded my perception of the forest, transforming it from a sanctuary into a haunting ground. As we continued our conversation, I couldn't help but think about Old Man Ketchum's warnings. The complexity of our emotional ties to the land was intertwined with the legends that surrounded it. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn to the stories he recounted about lost souls and the guardians of the forest. I began to wonder if our personal struggles were somehow connected to the larger narrative of the wilderness itself. Meanwhile, tensions within the community escalated. The gathering we held had sparked a divide among the townsfolk. Some dismissed the folklore as mere superstition, while others became increasingly paranoid. Clara, the woman who had voiced her concerns during the meeting, organized a group of locals to conduct their own investigations into the woods. They believed that confronting the forest was the only way to uncover the truth. I felt a sense of unease as I watched Clara and her group venture deeper into the forest, armed with flashlights and makeshift weapons. Their determination was admirable, yet I sensed a reckless disregard for the warnings we had received. "They're going to get themselves in trouble," I muttered to Sarah, who stood beside me, her expression troubled. "What can we do?" "We can't control how they choose to respond to their fears," she replied, her voice strained. "But we owe it to them to make sure they understand the risks." We decided to reach out to Clara and her group, hoping to convince them to join us instead. But as we approached their campsite, we were met with hostility. Clara's eyes blazed with defiance as she confronted us. "You think you can protect us? You've already disturbed the forest's balance." Her words cut deep, and I felt a mix of frustration and sorrow. "We're not trying to control anyone. We just want to understand what's happening out here and help keep everyone safe." But Clara was resolute, her fear morphing into anger. "You're just as afraid as we are. You can't stop this. We're going to face whatever this is, whether you like it or not." As tensions boiled over, I realized that our conflict extended beyond the supernatural elements of the forest. It involved the very fabric of our community, our relationships with one another, and our struggle to confront fear in the face of the unknown. The following day, as I patrolled a different area of the forest alone, I stumbled upon a hidden grove. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. In the center stood a massive tree, its gnarled roots twisting like fingers reaching for the sky. Something about it felt sacred, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it had witnessed countless stories unfold over the years. As I examined the tree, I noticed carvings etched into its bark symbols that mirrored those I had seen in the clearing. My heart raced as I realized that I had found another sacred site, one that demanded respect and reverence. But the deeper I delved into the forest's mysteries, the more I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me. That night, I gathered my notes and sketches, determined to confront both my fears and the complexities of our situation. I needed to share what I had found with Sarah, to discuss the growing rift within the community, and to confront the darkness that seemed to loom over us all the following day. As we met at the ranger station, I laid out my findings. We need to come together, Sarah. The community is fracturing, and if we don't unite, we risk losing everything we hold dear. She nodded, her expression resolute. You're right. We have to find a way to bridge the gap, to show them that we're all in this together. But we need to do it soon, before fear drives us apart. As we plotted our next steps, I realized that the conflicts we faced were not just about the forest, but also about healing the wounds within ourselves and our community. The journey ahead would require courage, understanding, and a willingness to confront the complexities of our connections to both the land and one another. Little did I know that the true test of our resolve was yet to come, and the forest would soon reveal its secrets in ways we could never have anticipated. The tension in the Alaskan wilderness reached a boiling point as the community's divide deepened. Clara and her group, fueled by fear and determination, had become increasingly reckless in their pursuit of answers. With each passing day, the whispers of the forest grew louder, and the sense of foreboding that had hung over us like a shroud began to manifest in more tangible ways. One evening, I received a frantic call from Sarah. You need to come to the old logging road. Clara and her group went out there, and they're not back yet, she said, her voice laced with urgency. My heart raced as I grabbed my gear and headed out into the gathering dusk. The forest, once a place of solace, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows, each tree and rock seeming to watch my every move. As I approached the logging road, the air grew thick with an unnatural stillness. The usual sounds of wildlife were absent, replaced by an eerie silence that sent chills down my spine. I quickened my pace, my instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. When I reached the clearing where Clara and her group had last been seen, I found their campsite abandoned, with campfires still smoldering and gear strewn about haphazardly. Clara, I called, my voice echoing into the void. But all that greeted me was silence. Panic surged within me as I scanned the area, searching for any sign of them. It was then that I noticed something peculiar, a trail of footprints leading deeper into the woods, but they were unlike any I had seen before. The prints were large and elongated, almost animalistic, and they appeared to have been made recently. With a sense of dread, I followed the tracks, the forest closing in around me as darkness fell. Each step felt like a descent into a nightmare, a journey into the heart of the unknown. I could feel the oppressive weight of the trees above me, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands, as if trying to pull me back. I shouted as I approached, but she didn't respond. Instead, she was fixated on the stones, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. As I drew closer, I could see that the symbols on the stones glowed faintly, pulsating with an inner light that seemed to resonate with the very heartbeat of the forest. What's happening? I shouted as I approached, but she didn't respond. Instead, she was fixated on the stones, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. As I drew closer, I could see that the symbols on the stones glowed faintly, pulsating with an inner light that seemed to resonate with the very heartbeat of the forest. What's happening? I demanded, my heart racing as I began to grasp the gravity of the situation. We need to leave this place. But Clara turned to me, her voice trembling. We were drawn here. It's like something called to us, something powerful. We thought we could confront it, understand it. Understand what? I asked, frustration bubbling to the surface. This is not a game. We don't know what we're dealing with. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, and a low rumbling sound echoed through the clearing. The stones began to vibrate, and the air crackled with energy. I felt a surge of fear as I realized that we had awakened something ancient and powerful. The whispers I had heard before swelled into a deafening chorus, filling my mind with fragmented thoughts and visions. It was as if the very essence of the forest was rising up, demanding recognition. Get back, I shouted, grabbing Clara's arm and pulling her away from the stones. But it was too late. The ground heaved, and a dark shape began to emerge from the earth, coalescing into a form that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. It was as if the shadows of the forest had taken physical shape, a manifestation of all the fears and stories that had haunted this land for centuries. The creature loomed before us, a swirling mass of darkness with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through to our very souls. I could feel its power, its ancient rage and sorrow, and I understood in that moment that we were not just confronting a physical entity, but the culmination of our own fears, the fears of a community divided, the fears of the past, and the fears of the unknown. With a surge of adrenaline, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my insides. It was as if the very essence of the forest was rising up, demanding recognition. Get back, I shouted, grabbing Clara's arm and pulling her away from the stones. But it was too late. The ground heaved, and a dark shape began to emerge from the earth, coalescing into a form that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. It was as if the shadows of the forest had taken physical shape, a manifestation of all the fears and stories that had haunted this land for centuries. The creature loomed before us, a swirling mass of darkness with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through to our very souls. The whispers around us quieted, replaced by an almost palpable tension as it considered my words. Your intentions matter little, it rumbled, its voice resonating through the air like distant thunder. You have disturbed the sacred ground, and the balance has been shattered. In that moment, I realized that this was our turning point. We had to confront not just the creature before us, but our own complicity in the turmoil that had unfolded. The community's fears, Clara's reckless pursuit of answers, and my own doubts had all contributed to this moment. It was time to acknowledge our role in the narrative of the forest and to seek a path toward redemption. Please, I urged, finding strength in my conviction. We can make amends. We can learn, we can listen, and we can protect this land together. Help us understand what we must do. The creature's gaze softened slightly, and the ground beneath us stilled. To heal the land, you must first heal yourselves. Only then can the balance be restored. I asked, my voice steady despite the tumultuous thoughts racing through my mind. How can we restore the balance? The creature regarded me with an intensity that felt like a piercing gaze into my very soul. You must confront the darkness you harbor within yourselves. It rumbled, its voice echoing like distant thunder. Only through understanding and acknowledgement of your fears can you find a path to redemption. In that moment, the weight of its words crashed over us like a wave. Clara's eyes widened, and I could see her grappling with the implications. The confrontation was not just with the creature, but also with our own insecurities, regrets, and the fractures that had formed within our community. What do you mean? Clara asked, her voice trembling. We didn't come here to face our fears. We came to confront the unknown. The creature shifted slightly, a ripple of energy coursing through its form. The unknown is shaped by the fears you carry. The atmosphere in the clearing shifted, the oppressive energy receding as we opened up to one another. It was as if the forest itself was responding, the whispers growing softer and more harmonious. As we shared our stories, the creature remained a silent observer, its presence a reminder of the ancient wisdom that lay within the land. I asked, my voice steady despite the tumultuous thoughts racing through my mind. How can we restore the balance? The creature regarded me with an intensity that felt like a piercing gaze into my very soul. You must confront the darkness you harbor within yourselves. It rumbled, its voice echoing like distant thunder. Only through understanding and acknowledgement of your fears can you find a path to redemption. In that moment, the weight of its words crashed over us like a wave. Clara's eyes widened, and I could see her grappling with the implications. The confrontation was not just with the creature, but also with our own insecurities, regrets, and the fractures that had formed within our community. "What do you mean?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "We didn't come here to face our fears. We came to confront the unknown." The creature shifted slightly, a ripple of energy coursing through its form. "The unknown is shaped by the fears you carry. You have disturbed the harmony of the forest, and in doing so, you have awakened not just me, but the echoes of your own past. Each of you must confront what you've hidden away." As its words hung in the air, I could feel the collective tension in the group rise. We were all grappling with our own demons. Clara, driven by a desire to uncover the truth, had ignored the warnings. Sarah, who had once felt a deep connection to the land, was now burdened by the loss of her childhood memories. And I, too, had buried my uncertainties, believing I could navigate the wilderness without acknowledging its deeper truths. The creature's gaze shifted to Sarah, its eyes glimmering with understanding. "You, who have felt the forest's call, must confront the pain of your past. The memories you hold dear are intertwined with the land. Only by embracing them can you find peace." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she took a step forward. "I didn't want to face my father's death," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I thought I could escape it by immersing myself in the forest, but it only made the pain worse." The creature nodded, its presence radiating a sense of compassion. "Acknowledge your sorrow, and you will find healing." Next, Clara stepped forward, her expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I wanted to prove that I could uncover the truth, but I didn't realize I was putting everyone at risk. I've been so blind to the dangers around me." Her voice trembled as she spoke, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. The creature's gaze softened. "To seek the truth is noble, but it must be balanced with respect for the land and its stories. You must learn to listen as well as to uncover." As Clara absorbed the creature's words, I felt a surge of determination. I stepped forward, ready to confront my own fears. I've always been driven by a desire to protect the forest, but I've also been afraid of failing in that responsibility. I've ignored the warnings, believing I could handle everything on my own. But I realize now that I cannot do this alone. The creature's eyes bore into mine, and I felt an overwhelming sense of accountability wash over me. "You must unite your community, for it is through connection that strength is found. Only together can you restore the balance of this land." With each admission, I could feel the weight of our fears beginning to lift. The atmosphere in the clearing shifted, the oppressive energy receding as we opened up to one another. It was as if the forest itself was responding, the whispers growing softer and more harmonious. As we shared our stories, the creature remained a silent observer, its presence a reminder of the ancient wisdom that lay within the land. We began to understand that confronting our fears and acknowledging our pasts were not signs of weakness, but rather steps toward healing. After what felt like hours, the creature finally spoke again, its voice resonating with a sense of finality. "You have taken the first step toward redemption. Remember, the forest is a living entity, and it requires respect, understanding, and connection. If you honor your commitments, the balance can be restored." With those words, the creature began to dissolve into the shadows, its form merging with the darkness of the forest. The pulsating glow of the stones dimmed, returning to their original state. I felt a sense of loss wash over me as the creature vanished, but I also felt hope. We had been given a chance to change, to mend what had been broken, and to forge a new path forward. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, illuminating the clearing, I turned to Clara, Sarah, and the rest of the group. "We have a lot of work to do," I said, my voice steady and filled with conviction. We need to come together as a community to honor the forest and its stories. We must ensure that future generations understand the importance of respect and connection with the land. Clara nodded, her expression resolute. I'm in. Let's make it right. Sarah smiled, her spirit rekindled. Together, as we stood in the clearing, united in our purpose, I realized that this was just the beginning. The consequences of our actions would ripple through the community, but with each step we took toward healing, we could transform our fears into a force for good. We're here to give thanks to the land and to the spirits that guide us. Let's create a commitment to honor this place and protect it for future generations. We gathered in a circle around the stones, each of us holding a small token of feather, a stone, a piece of wood. The collective experience of facing our fears acted as a catalyst for personal and communal growth, transforming the way we approached our roles as forest rangers and stewards of the land. As the days turned into weeks, Clara took the lead in organizing community workshops, focused on the importance of respecting nature and understanding its complexities. Drawing inspiration from the creature's message, she emphasized the need to listen to the land and to each other. We cannot afford to turn a blind eye to the stories our environment tells, she proclaimed during one of the meetings. They are not just tales, they are warnings, lessons, and connections to our past. Sarah and I joined Clara in her efforts, eager to contribute to the newfound energy coursing through our community. We developed educational programs aimed at local schools, teaching children about the delicate balance of the ecosystem and the significance of preserving sacred spaces. These workshops, filled with stories and hands-on activities, brought families together and rekindled a sense of connection to the land that many had forgotten. I found myself drawing strength from the process of sharing our experiences. I began to recount the tales of the forest, the legends that had once seemed mere folklore to me. By weaving together the history of the land with our personal stories, I hoped to forge a deeper understanding of our responsibilities as caretakers. The more I spoke, the more I realized that vulnerability was a source of strength. Acknowledging our fears and uncertainties allowed us to connect with one another on a profound level. As I stood in front of a group of eager children one afternoon, sharing the story of the creature we had encountered, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. This forest is alive, I explained, gesturing to the towering trees surrounding us. It has stories, just like each of you, and it's our job to honor those stories and learn from them. They are not just tales, they are warnings, lessons, and connections to our past. Sarah and I joined Clara in her efforts, eager to contribute to the newfound energy coursing through our community. We developed educational programs aimed at local schools, teaching children about the delicate balance of the ecosystem and the significance of preserving sacred spaces. We're here to give thanks to the land and to the spirits that guide us. Let's create a commitment to honor this place and protect it for future generations. We gathered in a circle around the stones, each of us holding a small token of feather, a stone, a piece of wood. As we took turns sharing our intentions for the land, I could see the transformation taking place. The fear that had once consumed us was being replaced by a sense of responsibility and connection. When it was my turn, I spoke from the heart. I want to honor the wisdom of the forest and the creatures that inhabit it. I commit to listening to its stories and ensuring that they are passed down to those who come after me. Tears welled in my eyes as I felt the weight of my words, knowing that we were forging a new path together. In the weeks that followed, the community began to thrive. We initiated regular cleanup events and tree planting campaigns, actively working to restore the areas that had been neglected. Families came together to participate, each individual contributing their time and effort. The forest, once a source of fear, became a symbol of resilience and unity. As the seasons changed, I found solace in the beauty of the Alaskan wilderness. The vibrant hues of autumn leaves gave way to the pristine whiteness of winter, and with each passing day, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer just a forest ranger. I was a custodian of a living, breathing entity, a steward of the stories that shaped our land. Old Man Ketchum's words echoed in my mind as I walked through the forest one crisp morning. Every tree, every rock has a story. I now understood the depth of that truth. The stories of the forest were not merely folklore. They were a tapestry woven from the threads of our experiences, fears, and triumphs. One day, while on a routine patrol, I encountered a young family hiking along one of the trails. They were animatedly discussing the various plants and animals we had covered in our workshops. A sense of pride swelled within me as I realized that our efforts were bearing fruit, that the knowledge and reverence for the land we had cultivated were being passed on to the next generation. "Look, Mom," the little boy exclaimed, pointing to a deer grazing in a nearby clearing. "Is that a sign that the forest is happy?" I smiled, crouching down to his level. "Yes, it is. When we take care of the forest, it takes care of us." It's a partnership. As I stood there, surrounded by the laughter and joy of the children, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The forest had not only helped me confront my fears, but had also united our community in a shared mission. We were no longer just individuals navigating the wilderness. We were a collective force dedicated to preserving the land and its stories. Through our journey, we had learned that true strength lies in vulnerability, and growth emerges from the willingness to confront our fears. The Alaskan wilderness, once a source of dread, had transformed into a sanctuary of healing, connection, and hope. And as I looked out over the vast expanse of trees and mountains, I knew that our commitment to the land would echo through the ages, a testament to the power of resilience and unity. As the Alaskan wilderness transitioned from the vibrant hues of autumn to the starkness of winter, a palpable tension hung in the air. The community had embraced the changes we had worked so hard to cultivate, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease remained. The stories of the creature we had encountered lingered in the minds of the townsfolk, and whispers about what lay beyond the known trails began to circulate once more. One evening, as snowflakes swirled outside the ranger station, I gathered Sarah, Clara, and a few other rangers for an urgent meeting. The flickering light of the fireplace cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and foreboding. I could sense that something was about to shift, and we needed to prepare. "I've been hearing strange reports from hikers," I began, my voice steady but filled with concern. "Folks are saying they've seen shadows moving through the trees and heard whispers carried by the wind. It's as if the forest is trying to communicate, but the message remains unclear." Clara nodded, her expression serious. "I've felt it too. There's an energy in the air, something that suggests the balance we fought to restore is still fragile. We need to approach this carefully." Sarah leaned forward, her brow furrowed in thought. "What if the creature we encountered is trying to warn us? Maybe it's not just a guardian. It could be an indicator of something deeper, something that's still unsettled in the forest." The weight of her words resonated with all of us. We had faced the creature before, but now it felt like we were on the brink of a new confrontation. With winter settling in, the stakes were higher. Snowstorms could easily isolate us, and the wilderness would become even more inhospitable. We needed to act quickly and decisively. "Let's organize a series of patrols," I suggested, my mind racing with possibilities. "We can cover more ground and gather information. If there's something out there, we need to be prepared to face it head on." As we discussed our plan, a sense of purpose surged through the group. We divided our responsibilities, each of us taking on specific areas to monitor. Sarah and Clara would scout the trails leading to the clearing where we had encountered the creature, while I focused on the areas where hikers had reported unusual sightings. We would regroup in a week to share our findings before we left the meeting. I felt compelled to address the emotional toll our experiences had taken on all of us. Whatever happens, we need to support each other, I said, looking each of them in the eye. This isn't just about the forest. It's about our community. We've forged bonds that run deeper than we can imagine. We can't let fear tear us apart. With a renewed sense of determination, we set out into the winter landscape. The snow crunched beneath our boots, the world blanketed in white, creating a surreal contrast to the darkness we were about to face. As we ventured into the woods, a sense of foreboding settled over me, but I pushed it aside. We were not just rangers. We were guardians of this land, and we had a duty to protect it. Over the next few days, I patrolled the trails, my eyes scanning the trees for any signs of movement. The forest felt different in winter, quiet, almost somber. The vibrant life that had once thrived here was subdued, buried beneath layers of snow. Yet, amid the stillness, I noticed subtle changes. Tracks that didn't belong to any known animal, and the occasional rustling in the underbrush that sent a shiver down my spine. One afternoon, while examining a set of tracks that appeared to spiral in an erratic pattern, I felt a presence behind me. I turned, heart racing, but saw only the tall, silent trees swaying gently in the breeze. Doubt crept into my mind, but I shook it off. I had to remain vigilant. On the evening of our planned reunion, I returned to the ranger station, eager to share my findings. The warmth of the fire welcomed me, but the tension in the air was thick. Sarah and Clara were already there, their expressions serious. "We need to talk," Clara said as I entered. "We found something." As they recounted their experiences, I listened intently, piecing together a picture of the unease that had enveloped us. Clara described a feeling of being watched, of shadows lurking just beyond their field of vision. Sarah shared her discovery of more strange symbols etched into the trees near the clearing. "It's as if the forest is trying to tell us something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But the message is buried beneath layers of fear and misunderstanding." I felt a wave of determination wash over me. Whatever it is, we can't ignore it. We need to confront the creature again, but this time we must approach it with respect and openness. We have to show that we are willing to listen and learn. Our decision was made, and with it came a sense of unity. We prepared for the confrontation, gathering supplies and sharing our intentions openly. Each of us held a token, a small item that represented our commitment to the land and our willingness to understand its mysteries. As the night of the confrontation drew closer, I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. The forest, once a source of joy and solace, now loomed as an enigma that demanded our attention. We were on the brink of something monumental, a turning point that could redefine our relationship with the wilderness. With our resolve strengthened and our hearts united, we set out into the cold, dark forest, ready to confront the unknown. The winds howled around us, and the trees whispered secrets that only the brave would dare to uncover. Whatever awaited us, we were determined to face it together. As guardians of the land and seekers of truth, the night was thick with anticipation as we trudged through the snow-laden forest, our breath visible in the frigid air. The moon hung high above, casting an ethereal light that illuminated our path, but did little to dispel the shadows lurking just beyond our sight. Each crunch of snow beneath our boots echoed like a heartbeat, a reminder of the urgency of our mission. We were not just rangers. We were a united front, determined to confront the creature that had haunted our dreams and our community. As we approached the clearing where we had first encountered the creature, the atmosphere shifted. A tangible energy filled the air, and the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for us to make our move. I could feel the weight of Sarah's hand on my shoulder, grounding me as we stepped into the circle of ancient stones that stood sentinel in the moonlight. "Remember what we agreed," I whispered to the group. my voice steady, but filled with resolve. We're here to listen, to understand. We must show respect for this land and its guardians. Clara nodded, clutching a small wooden carving, a token of our commitment to the forest. The energy in the clearing became electric, charged with the weight of our revelations. With our hearts laid bare, the creature stepped closer, its form shimmering with a brilliant light. You have shown courage and vulnerability. The shadows that haunted you are now released, their energy transformed into strength. I could feel its gaze piercing through me, assessing our intentions, searching for the truth within our hearts. Why have you returned? The creature's voice boomed, resonating through the clearing with a force that shook the ground beneath our feet. What do you seek in this sacred space? I stepped forward, heart pounding, and took a deep breath. We seek understanding, I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. We have heard the stories, felt your presence, and we are here to acknowledge the connection between our lives and this land. We want to learn how to protect it and respect the balance that has been disrupted. The creature regarded me with an intensity that felt both intimidating and inviting. Your intentions are noble, but the scars of your actions run deep. You have awakened the echoes of the past, and they stir restlessly within the forest. Clara took a step forward, her voice trembling but unwavering. We know we have made mistakes, but we are committed to making amends. We want to help heal the land and honor those who have been lost. What can we do to restore the balance? The creature's eyes flickered with something akin to recognition. To restore balance, you must confront the darkness that lies within yourselves and within the forest. The echoes of fear and sorrow have taken form, and they now wander the woods, seeking release. As the creature spoke, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The realization hit me like a wave. The shadows that had haunted us were not just manifestations of the forest's anger. They were reflections of our own fears, regrets, and the pain we had carried. Each of us had hidden our vulnerabilities, and it was time to confront them. But how do we do that? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How do we confront what we fear? Face your truths, the creature replied, its voice softening. Each of you must offer something from your heart, something that represents your fear or regret. Only then can the shadows be laid to rest. A heavy silence fell over us as we absorbed the weight of its words. The stakes were high, and the thought of revealing our innermost fears was daunting. Yet, I felt a deep-seated need to confront what had been buried within me, the regrets that had festered since my arrival in the Alaskan wilderness. I'll go first, I said, my heart racing. I stepped forward, holding the small token. I had carved a wooden figure representing my connection to the forest. I've been afraid of failing this land, of not living up to the responsibility that comes with being a ranger. I regret not listening to the warnings, not acknowledging the stories that have shaped this place. As I placed the figure on the ground, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The shadows around us seemed to pulse and sway, as if responding to my admission. Next, Clara stepped forward, her hands trembling as she held out her carving. I've been afraid of losing my connection to this place after my father's death. I regret letting my fear dictate my relationship with the forest. I want to honor his memory and the love he had for these woods. As she laid her carving beside mine, the shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of the past, echoes of laughter, warmth, and connection. Sarah followed suit, her voice steady as she spoke of her fears of inadequacy and her desire to protect the land. Each offering seemed to resonate with the creature, a ripple of energy flowing through the clearing. One by one, we faced our truths, revealing our vulnerabilities and regrets. As we laid our tokens upon the ground, the shadows began to shift and transform, coalescing into a swirling mass that danced in the moonlight. The energy in the clearing became electric, charged with the weight of our revelations. With our hearts laid bare, the creature stepped closer, its form shimmering with a brilliant light. You have shown courage and vulnerability. The shadows that haunted you are now released, their energy transformed into strength. You have taken the first step toward healing, not just for yourselves, but for this land. As the last of the shadows dissipated into the night, a profound sense of peace washed over the clearing. The air felt lighter, and the whispers of the forest transformed into a gentle breeze, a melody of gratitude. We will protect this land, I vowed, my heart swelling with resolve. We will honor its stories and its guardians, ensuring that future generations understand the importance of respect and connection. The creature nodded, its eyes glowing with approval. Your journey is just beginning. As guardians of this land, you must continue to share your stories, listen to the whispers, and protect the delicate balance that sustains all life. Remember, the forest is alive, and it will always be watching. With that, the creature slowly receded into the shadows, leaving us standing in the clearing, transformed and united. The moon shone brightly above, illuminating our path forward. We are no longer just rangers. We were the voices of the forest, the guardians of its legacy, bound together by our shared truths and our commitment to protect the land we loved. As the winter melted into spring, the Alaskan wilderness transformed before our eyes. The Alaskan wilderness thrives, a testament to the power of vulnerability, connection, and the enduring spirit of those who choose to listen to its whispers. Join us in protecting the Alaskan wilderness and all its wonders. Whether you're a local or a visitor, take the time to explore, learn, and appreciate the beauty of nature. Share the stories of the land and foster a deep respect for its ecosystems. Participate in community initiatives focused on conservation and education. And remember that every small action contributes to a larger impact. Children who once roamed the woods with trepidation now explored with a sense of wonder and respect, their laughter echoing through the trees. Sarah and I continued to lead educational programs, sharing the legends of the land and instilling a sense of stewardship that resonated within the hearts of the community. The clearing where we had faced the creature became a place of reflection and gathering. We built a small stone altar adorned with tokens from each of us, carvings, feathers, and flowers, all representing our commitment to the forest. It became a symbol of our journey, a reminder of the power of vulnerability and the importance of honoring the past while nurturing a hopeful future. As the seasons changed, so did our relationship with the wilderness. We learned to listen to the whispers of the trees, the songs of the rivers, and the stories carried by the wind. The forest, once a realm of fear, had transformed into a sanctuary of growth, healing, and connection. We understood that it was not merely a backdrop to our lives. It was a living entity, deserving of respect and reverence. Yet, amid this newfound harmony, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey was far from over. The wilderness held countless secrets, and as guardians, we had a responsibility to continue exploring, learning, and protecting the land we loved. The echoes of our past experiences reminded us that the relationship between humanity and nature is delicate, and we must remain vigilant in our efforts to ensure its survival. As I stood in the clearing one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had faced the darkness together, and in doing so, we had forged a bond that would last a lifetime. The Alaskan wilderness was no longer just a job. It was a calling, an invitation to become stewards of the land for generations to come. Years later, the stories of our journey continue to resonate within the community. The clearing has become a gathering place for families, where they share tales of the wilderness and teach their children the importance of respect for nature. Clara, now the community's environmental advocate, leads initiatives to protect the forest and its inhabitants. Sarah and I remain dedicated to our roles as forest rangers, guiding new generations in understanding the delicate balance of the ecosystem. The Alaskan wilderness thrives, a testament to the power of vulnerability, connection, and the enduring spirit of those who choose to listen to its whispers. Join us in protecting the Alaskan wilderness and all its wonders. Whether you're a local or a visitor, take the time to explore, learn, and appreciate the beauty of nature. Share the stories of the land and foster a deep respect for its ecosystems. Participate in community initiatives focused on conservation and education. And remember that every small action contributes to a larger impact. Let's work together to ensure that future generations inherit a thriving wilderness, rich with life and history, a place where the echoes of the past are cherished and the whispers of the forest continue to inspire.